The question is, should you or should you not attend a live event if you're invited? That's the question for today. And how many events are going to be going on, and what does the future look like? That's the topic for We Wonder today. My name is Chris Pfluger. I am the Chief Development Officer here at We Insure, and we have some interesting topics each week, none more relevant than today's topic on event planning. So I'm going to introduce our guest speaker here, Irene, in just a second. And before I do, I can tell you the quandary that we have. From a professional perspective, we have quite a few live events. We used to have a lot of events. And since the COVID pandemic, kind of came out, we've deferred events, we've put events off, we've changed to different formats. And the question is, what does the future hold for all of us? As an attendee, I've been invited to events that are coming up soon. People are very excited about, hey, I'm going to put on the first live event in a long time. I'm going to jump into that. The question is, should I attend? Is it safe? As a speaker or as a sponsor, I certainly want to go because I want to be in front of a lot of people. But are those people going to actually change their mind at the last minute? Are we going to have a spike in the fall here where people are saying, I don't feel safe? And what you can do as an event host to kind of mitigate some of those concerns. So let's get started. I'm going to change our format here and welcome Irene Tataris. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Irene, we work with you quite a bit on some of our events, so you can answer a lot of these questions, I'm sure, but you're an industry professional. And tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Well, I own a company, Savvy Events Entertainment. We're a full destination management event planning company. So basically, we plan multiple day corporate events, larger events, anything from sales meetings to event decor. I've been in the industry over 22 years now. I am a CMP, which is a certified meeting professional in our industry. There's only 11,000 of us worldwide, but it helps with on the CMP side that we actually know a lot of the industry standards, regulations, rules. We know all the sides of the event logistics and what should be happening and taking place on.
Well, that is fantastic. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to join us because I know a lot of people watching this are having the same question, right? They're thinking, okay, I've got events planned for 2021, the beginning of it. I know what happened in 2020, right? I pushed things out. The very beginning of the year, I attended quite a few events from other, companies to our company, and we had some fantastic events. And then literally 15 days, it shut down. Like the whole world shut down. Fortunately, knock on wood, none of us got sick from that, and we're staying safe and healthy. But as we start thinking about coming back into the work environment, and then other companies are pulling back from that, saying we're not going live, right? We're not bringing people back until the middle of next year. What does that hold for spring? Like there's some events people are starting to do in the fall, but really we're thinking, what do we do in spring? So how are events different, from what we expect?
Well, there's a lot more safety guidelines in place now. I do think it's safe to do live events. However, you have to make sure you're following safety procedures, your attendants are following safety procedures, and there's a lot more planning and logistics of, what happens if this takes place in events, and really making sure that the attendees feel safe. I do think in our industry right now, they are doing live events with 2,000-3,000 people at them and taking on all these new technology of all the safety measures or what they're doing to show people that the events are safe. I think that you have to, really weigh the pros and the cons of what you want to get out of the meeting. I think that right now in the industry, a lot of people are going also to hybrid events where maybe some are in person and some are virtual, and or they're going to all virtual events. I think that meetings are extremely important and do a really good benefit to your employees and morale and education and learning. So I think events are really good. It's just you have to help figure out what type of event are you comfortable in going with your company right now, whether it be all live, half and half, and or all virtual, but coming up with different ideas and concepts and keeping everybody safe.
Well, you can imagine that it's evolved over the years where a lot of company events are really, just like you mentioned, to show people, morale boosters or annual report to the whole group. We want to get together and have fun. We have large luncheons and, whatever it might be. And now it becomes, is there a liability in doing that? And so let me ask you a question about liability before we jump into how they're doing it. is liability discussion point, in the industry. What do we do? How do we mitigate some of the liability?
Well, it's a huge question, and a lot of people really talk about it. We've noticed now, like in our contracts for like our clients, as well as our contracts to like suppliers such as hotels, the wording and stuff is very different. There's a lot of mention of COVID in there, what the liability possibly could be, and again, doing hold harmless. People signing off that, there is a liability by attending this event. We're doing everything to keep you safe, and here's your safety measures. So I think the law, the verbiage is changing, and now it's a lot of mention of COVID in there. And we're trying to tell people we're doing everything to keep you safe. Yes, there could be a liability, but we're going to try to keep you safe while you're there.
That is what you would assume to see, kind of the legality associated with it come into play. Obviously we mentioned some of those pieces, of safety. How would you communicate that to attendees and to sponsors? Would you send out like something in advance, or would you tell them bring this, or how would you do it?
No, we actually will have links like in advance of here's the safety measures that we're taking, and making sure people know, letting know from the beginning of we're requiring face masks. There are venues right now that are requiring face masks, whether you're inside or whether you're outside. And, we're going to take temperatures as people check in. There's people doing much more of like hand sanitation stations around, or the UV lighting sanitation stations for people to go, and making those, they're actually turning them to like sponsor focal points. So you can have a sponsor on the sign of the hand station and it there. So they're looking for different marketing ways of keeping people safe, but also for those sponsors too. But I think that, relaying that information, but there's also logistic planning of setting it up. We're doing an event in November that is a small board group. It's 30 people. We're setting up a couple really big feasting tables. Everybody is 5 to 6 feet apart. They're 5 to 6 feet apart across. So we're doing more tables and using more space, but to help ensure safety. So there's a lot of pre-information to give clients about what we're going to be doing, making them feel safe. And even letting them know, okay, here's the safety guidelines for what, if we're having it at a hotel, what they're doing. They're cleaning the areas, sooner. We're going to have touchless registration. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be providing masks if you're there and you forgot your mask. We're going to be taking all these initiatives, but then in the planning of the actual event, there's initiatives that are going on too behind the scenes. You're not going to see buffets as much anymore. You're not going to see cooking stations as much anymore, past hors d'oeuvres, or even preset salads. You won't see that right now. So those are like initiatives or ways that they feel that they're taking more safety measures to make you safe there. But then also when people are on site, allowing them to know, like, here's the information, here's what we're doing. And if they don't adhere to it, then they're going to not be able to attend the event. And making sure that when people are wearing masks, that, we have spotters, that everyone is wearing their mask properly and everyone's doing the procedures, because I feel that making it a safe environment for everyone will make people want to come out and be a part of it.
That is, reassuring, I think, to a lot of folks. I would imagine it's difficult to staff all of these events. I'm sure, hotels are dying to have people in there. I've seen things for Vegas where people say, hey, if you're going to work from home, you might as well work from, Caesar's Palace and sit on the pool, which I thought was genius. But how many people are willing to, to come in there and take those risks? That's the question. So are hotels, are the pricing, dropping and being very competitive to lure people in? Are the event, venues really attractively pricing, or are they trying to hold the line because they've lost a lot of money?
I think it's a mix of both. Right now, it's definitely a buyer's market. So if you want to have an event, you want to travel, whatever you want to do, you're going to get the better rates right now. I have noticed that hotels and stuff are giving more space and more time for those events to be taking place, which in the past we have not seen. So now they're saying, okay, well, we're going to, let you have this whole ballroom. We're going to give you a whole, extra day to prepare for it. We're going to give you, a ballroom seating for 1,500 people, although you only have 500 people there. So the hotels are wanting you back in too, so they're going to take extra measures and everything to do. So I have noticed a lot of places right now, they're using this year's rates on next year events, which we normally don't see. So that is one good thing. for the industry. So the hotels are wanting you back. They are making some better deals. The thing is that what's happening a little bit is space availability, because everything that canceled in 2020, it was starting to be moved back to the end of 2020, but now it's going to next year of 2020 or 2021. So it really just kind of depends on if that hotel has the space available and what your needs are, then they will be willing to work with you and to get you in there.
Now, is that similar when people are pushing out those events? Is it very similar to like high school and college graduations where they're saying, we're tentatively scheduling this for May of 2021, but we're going to see how it goes. And then they have a lot of escape clauses and outs that allow people to say, okay, we understand you may want to change this again.
So no, well, that's the one thing you have to be really cautious about what you're moving forward, because at the beginning of the pandemic, we were like 6 weeks out from a huge event going on, and the hotel was like, because of all the guidelines that were going on, there was no choice but for us to postpone the event. The hotel was great with it. We had more issues with the events that were October or November of trying to reschedule, but we were able, fortunately at that time, we were able to negotiate with the hotels about switching, and they've been, very flexible, because this is a first for all of us, and they don't want to lose the business. They want to make sure that you're happy and everyone feels safe and coming as well. But you do see a lot more of contracting terms that when you're signing a new contract now, it will be a little bit harder for you to get out of. So you need to make sure before you do your event what's going to happen. For example, we're planning an event right now. The client was interested in May of next year. I kind of felt that they weren't going to be they felt like that might be a little bit too. So we really pushed to them, like, let's do October of next year. Mm-hmm. But we also went in with the plan of this meeting's happening now because it was postponed last year. If it doesn't happen, we're going to go all virtual, and we're going to go all live. So we have, plan A is it's in person. Plan B is we're doing 50, how many people want to attend and who doesn't want to attend. And plan C is we're going all virtual. So I think now you really need to think of like the different types of plans, and also make sure you're contracting enough people, but not overly contracting in case you do lose attendance. Right now, they say statistics are 80% of people want to attend in-person events. So now people are wanting to get out and being a part of society again, but now you just have to make sure that it's safe for them to get out. And in the industry, we're doing everything to keep it safe because this is what we thrive on. So just like Disney right now, you don't hear about a lot of cases happening or anything happening at Disney specifically because they're taking so many initiatives to keep them safe at their park that it's going to make people feel safe to want to go.
Yeah, that would be bad PR. So I know that they're doing everything. I've actually gone to downtown Disney for a lunch, and they're catching you in the parking lot, and they're people are watching you as you walk just down the outside streets. It's not a joke for them. They take it very seriously, which is
very serious.
What you'd hope to see, right, for your family.
Yeah.
Make sure your safety is first. So,
and now you see vending machines with masks on them there too. I don't know if you saw those when you're at Disney Springs, but you're like, a vending machine with mask. Like, what's going on?
It's definitely changed the way we do everything, right? The world has changed. So
it has 100%.
Some of the questions that I had, for all the CFOs and controllers out there that are listening to this, we're having to budget, and we've taken dollars from today, right? We've taken today's dollars and we've pushed it all the way through the year because we didn't have that event. And so, how do you take that? I mean, there's obviously a little bit of a surplus. You may have changed to a virtual event, which would be much more cost effective, I would assume, because you're not having food and lodging and travel and expensive setting up and tearing down. What are you advising people to do, knowing that there's still unknowns out there for 2021? And I think you mentioned beforehand, from the industry perspective, when are they thinking it's going to be back to fully normal, right now?
All right. So I think that in planning, it's everyone's corporation and company is different. You have to look at what are you trying to get out of the meeting? What are you trying to do? Is it beneficial for the company to continue to have it, or is it too much of a risk for the company to have it? So it's really honestly, it's a hard question to answer because everyone is different with each company. If I know a company right now doesn't have everyone back, everyone's still working remotely, I would encourage them to have a live event because because they're not even comfortable with being back in the office. But if they're comfortable being back in the office right now, then let's look at the other ways or what we could actually do. Unfortunately, we thought the event industry would start coming back in 2021. We do feel that it's going to be coming back. It is coming back. It's very slow. However, right now it says that we won't really be fully back into like 100% of the normal until 2023. So it's going to be a little bit of time of recovering, during that. They say right now, 17 million people is in the hospitality industry back in January, February. Right now, we're down to like 12 million people. So there's a lot of people out of work that have been furloughed for months. They're now getting laid off too, or laid off. But then on the reverse, we're also seeing some companies starting to slowly hire people back too. So I think it's going to be a slow increase over time. I definitely do think next year that will be, and then of course, once everything kind of gets a little bit more known with COVID or vaccination, then we definitely think that things like that will go back to normal.
Yeah, so there's a lot of unknowns right now to say, and that was my point on the planning purposes. If you're a CFO or you're in the C-suite and you're making decisions for your company, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? You have to decide, is this a nice to have and we've always had it, we've always done it this way, or is it something that's truly beneficial and it drives business, so we have to have that event. And then you're making those decisions, and again, knowing that everyone's health concerns are primary.
Right.
Decisions, you've got to decide from a mental health versus a physical health versus a business well-being. Is it worth doing?
Right. And the other thing I would say too is hiring someone like myself, a planner. We know what's going on. What we've actually done during this time of somewhat of a break in our industry is we've actually gone back for educational courses. There's so many of us that have taken high-level classes on what to do or how to plan for this crisis, or event industry council. They're shooting us out information, not only for us, but hey, when you're booking a location, look at all this information to make sure it's safe for you. So we can actually come in and do that, the strategic planning with you to make sure that it's right for your organization, because we want to make sure that it's right and we want to make sure that it's safe for you.
So would you say, the numbers are down 50%, 60%? I'm sure you have some of those kind of statistics, year over year, and you're expecting incremental increases, I know, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the beginning, there was like a 96% events cancellation. So most events were canceling. The projections actually are continually changing on what it's actually doing, like an increasing. It is more people are starting to feel safe. There are some surveys out there that they say like, okay, well, we feel safe doing this, but maybe not this. We feel safe doing that. And so we're really kind of like, looking at those. There's not really, unfortunately, the numbers are changing so much at times. We don't know the exact number of what the percentage increase will be, but beside that, we won't have a full recovery until 2023. But I mean, they are saying about 50% of the people will be having meetings next year.
Okay. Well, I told you this before we started. I was invited to an event next month, and I know that a live event where I'd have to fly in a plane, stay in a hotel room, which I've done in a hotel room, during COVID. I know that they've taken some precautions in hotel rooms, which they finally wrapped all of the remote controls for the TVs, which they should have done forever. But just in general, you could tell that there's other safety precautions in place. Some hotels are saying they're putting up, I think you mentioned, some tape on the front door saying this room's been cleaned, and there's a lot of things to make you feel more comfortable. I certainly did feel comfortable, but I did bring something to wipe the room down just in case. So, but the question is, airline travel, and it's next month. Obviously, as someone who's speaking at the event, my concern is I'm getting into a room that should have 125 people, even though they're spread out, and you have 15 that actually decide to attend. And, you've made the commitment to be, somewhere else right before a big holiday. And so is it safe? That's the question. Are traveling for these events and the events themselves, are they safe in your opinion?
It goes back to, yes, I think they're safe, but you got to practice the basics. You got to go back. You have to make sure you're wearing a mask. You have to wash your hands. You got to quit touching your face. You have to make sure, where you're at and that person is taking the safety seriously. So yes, of course it's safe, but there's going to have to be precautions, and the way that you look at it is different. And I had kind of mentioned a long time ago, or a little while back to you, is that we're also doing things like, when you're in attendance, is how comfortable are you being around people? They're wearing ribbons or lanyards or beads saying, okay, you know what, red is I'm here but stay away from me, but yellow is, hey, you know what, I'm okay here but kind of be cautious. And then green is like, woo, what is COVID even here? So we're taking those measures too. So do I think it's safe? Absolutely, if you're taking precautions. But if you're not taking precautions, then no. But I think each individual person also has to do their own health risk, because, are you at a certain age, or how's this going to affect you? Do you have pre-lining health conditions? Those are kind of the things as well that maybe you wouldn't want to travel. But then there's other people who don't have that, who are wanting and willing to travel or to do things. The other thing is too, is people just have to think outside of the box. One thing right now is a drive-in theater. Drive-in theaters are coming back. Who would have thought of that? They're going out of business. But you know what I mean? People are having events at drive-in theaters. So then people can be in safety of their car and have this event still going on. And, or if they want to come out of their car and socialize, then they can do that. So I think it's, yes, things are safe, traveling safe. You got to be cautious. You got to take the safety measures in and really rethink the situations and be creative on it.
Well, I have to tell you, I had never thought about that until you mentioned it, in our call, as having a lanyard that says, hey, I'm comfortable with, being here, but not being near anybody. So wave at me, versus wearing a t-shirt that says I'm a hugger. There's obviously different levels, but you can tell that certain people are not going to want to do that. And I think that's genius that you walk up, and I've had several people, walk up and do handshakes. Other people are like just waving, elbows, whatever it might be, and everyone has a different level. And it's almost like, you want to be cautious and respectful at the same time. And a lot of times you can just give them the old fist bump, and we wipe that fist down later. So it's, right. It's definitely something that's always on my mind. And I traveled heavily. I've even been invited to events overseas for, end of the first quarter next year, beginning of the second quarter. You start to think, okay, that might be too much, right? That's in case I just happen to get sick and I'm that far away from home. That might be too much for my comfort level. But something in the States where I'm, a short flight from here or there, maybe not. Maybe that's not a problem for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're going to see too, like the new thing now is like they're doing a lot of sponsor branding on face masks, or your event name on the face mask. So everyone's coming in, they're getting face masks, they're getting hand sanitizer, they're getting a little health kit when they come in to make sure everything's going to be okay. You're going to also see a lot more thermal scanning going on of body temperature. So if you're at a big convention, that it's actually happening and you don't even know that it's happening, to make sure that attendees are safe. So we actually saw something the other day too, that about like database systems, that now, they're giving their employees rapid tests before they're allowed to work, when there are like 500 people at this location, and how they're actually tracking it and what they're doing. So on the event side and the hotel side, everyone's doing things to keep people safe. Now it's just going to be you having that comfortable and getting out there and like doing it, and relying on that information beforehand of what's happening, so you feel secure at that event too.
Well, the two funny aspects or joke aspects of this is I've heard people saying, hey, I'm hoping we can do our next event. That's why I was asking about pricing. Is it coming down? Our next event should be in Hawaii because it's cheap to get there. And if I get sick, I'd rather stay. The second one is a badly impacted industry is pickpockets, because you have to be 6 feet apart. Right? So it's a brutal.
Exactly. Well, I do actually now see a lot more travel insurance coming out there. And I think that, again, and when we talk to like companies about what do they want to do for their events, okay, so you do decide to go to Hawaii, you better have a plan if your employee does get sick of what you're going to do and making sure that they're okay and that everything is paid for until they can actually come back. So we're looking at a lot more, what if this happens, what are we going to do? And we have a million different plans going on there right now, custom for that client.
That is why you hire a professional right there. Right? You need to know all the aspects of it. And again, I think people are so anxious to go do something, but then when push comes to shove, are you willing to be the guy that goes out and does something on the bleeding edge of that? So.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is too, is a lot of our clients have been surveying their members or their employees to say, hey, we're thinking about this. would you feel comfortable in coming if we're doing this, this, and this? And getting that information, that's one of the things I really recommend to my client. Before you sign a contract with a hotel that you're going to have 500 people there, ask the people, are they going to be coming and are they comfortable? And then go based on that number.
Well, that's a great way to do it. You get at least a feel for who's looking to do it.
Right.
I think it's still a game time decision for a lot of people. They get right up to that event and knowing flexibility on travel these days, they may or may not attend or want to attend. But I did like that, for your advice for future events. You mentioned the fact that, have it for the people who want to be live, and then you have a virtual component. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's very interesting.
Well, I mean, honestly, really what it is that when they're there live, we're having the 6 feet social distancing. We're having everything set up as you would, an event for 1,000 people going on, but maybe only 100 people are coming in. So we're going to have that set up to have the social distancing, everything be okay. But then for virtual, we're going to give you the same experience. We're going to actually give you a little bit more of a fun experience too, because we want to keep your attention. So we're looking at different things that what will keep your attention. We've actually had someone who did a gala, and they end up having this whole event. They actually had live music. So although the band wasn't there with them, they had it switching back to the band or going to this portion and really incorporating it so it felt like a full event. And you're going to see that. You're going to see new ideas. You're going to just kind of see different things. We've had one of our clients is doing an event. They end up sending all their people that were going to be on it happy hour. So they were having a 5:30 happy hour event. Well, you end up getting your whole little bar mixing kit. Everything had to mix up, for that event. So you were still a part of it. And I think that that's one big thing is when you're going virtual and you're going live, you got to think about those people that are out there on the computer and be virtual. What can you do to keep their attention and make them feel part of that event?
Well, it used to be kind of a problem, if you were sitting there drinking by yourself in front of the TV. But now it's just an event. I like it. Okay, so this does allow us some flexibility in events going forward. And I know we've had those discussions. I know every major company has had this discussion. How do we keep moving forward and do it, in a healthy, safe way for everybody? And so I know that companies now are pushing back, saying, hey, we're going to consider the end of the year before we come back to the office. The eyes are spiked, over the last few weeks. People are saying we're going to really talk about next summer and then, re-gauge it then, because there's no point in pushing anybody, because there'll be people that have childcare issues or they have other issues out there that just, will be pervasive across your entire, employee population that you have to consider. And you don't want to leave people out either, saying, well, people who don't have kids can show up at this event. The people who do don't come to this event because, it just seems like it's, so there's so much unknown today that, I applaud you guys for being that far ahead and thinking through every aspect of this to try to bring back some normalcy to the industry. But as you said, probably 2023 is what we're looking at for a full-blown, everybody's back to it.
And I would also just tell people is don't just fully jump into something. When you're even when you're bringing back employees, how are you bringing them back? You're bringing them back by maybe people who are volunteering to come into the office or then coming in a couple days a week. And it's kind of the same as like an event. Don't just go in and have an event for 500 people. Have an event for 25 or 30 people. See, are they comfortable with coming out to it? Making it a little bit smaller, it's okay. But it's doing it that way. So don't just fully jump in. Let's think about some things and let's look at some things and let's see how we can get everybody comfortable in being out there and knowing that it's safe. Because just like bringing back employees to work, you bring back some little by little, the safer they feel, then it's going to be, better for them. And then you're going to bring back everybody. So kind of the same with events, bring us back slowly. And if you don't want to do live, look into how can we do virtual events and make it fun, because there's a lot of different events from, trivia nights to casino nights to learning how to make a cocktail that you can do virtual. So you can still bring that employee camaraderie back, because if not, everyone's kind of feel very isolated right now. They're not, people like to be social. They need to be social and to be networking and being with other coworkers.
We had an event last night that was a trivia event with about 25 to 30 of us, and it was a lot of fun. My team was rigged because we had me on the team, so I didn't know a lot of the answers, but I still enjoyed hanging out with everybody and seeing them, and then kind of being in that competitive environment, and we're all see people I normally don't see on a daily basis from the company. So I thought that was great.
Mhm.
I think we're all getting used to that. We're settling into this. One last question was on travel. And so we talked about, is it safe? And yes, if you take certain concerns. And I was going to bring up, if an event is within driving distance, it's one thing. But, if you're staying at a hotel, we talked about that. But what about airline travel? What have you guys heard about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we've actually heard that it is safe to do and different measures that they're taking to make it safe. So again, I think traveling can be safe. I think you have to take precautions. There goes back again to the basics of touching your face or wearing your mask or, doing various things. So I think personally anything can be safe right now if you're taking your caution, like be cautious doing it as well. Again, we're not hearing a lot of statistics on this is the percentage that is getting it because they're traveling, or this is the percentage of doing this or that. We don't have really enough information on that, but yet we haven't heard anything. Even when people travel to go do an event with our industry, we haven't heard of like cases on a rise because of that particular event. So I think that overall it is safe as long as you're being cautious in doing it. So it goes back to the basics: wash your hands, wear a mask, be safe, and making sure wherever you're going that they're implementing. I know, recently I traveled over here just into like our Pinellas County, but they were so strict on guidelines. I felt safe. You can't walk anywhere without a mask on, inside or outside. You go to a restaurant, you're wearing that mask until you're sitting down. So I do think everything can be safe. What we're hearing in the industry is, of course, it's safe, and we just got to get people back out there and doing things.
Well, I will tell you, those who have not flown, I've done it about 6 or 7 times since the very beginning of COVID. And in the very beginning, it was extremely eerie because you'd walk into entire airport terminals. There's nothing open, and there's only one gate, and there's 25 people there. Which, on one hand, was fantastic because you got to the airport very quickly, and there wasn't many people around you. You could have your own row, and 3 rows ahead of you was another person. That's not how it is today. Obviously, they've cut the routes down. There are people sitting next to you in the middle seats if the flight sells, which there's only a few of them, so they do sell. They do have more direct flights than they used to. They used to have a lot of connecting flights. But I think the biggest point is when you're on the plane, they wipe it down. They give you wipes. And, you are having some of the best ventilation systems in the world on these planes, and the air is blowing straight down. And as I mentioned before, I know that United Airlines did a study with the military, and they had a study to see if you're wearing a mask, what's the likelihood of transmitting on a plane, and it was under 0.25%.
Right.
Now, if you take your mask off, you wander around and someone coughs directly in your face, you're the guy that's going to get it. But as it stands, if you're following the precautions, it is the most unlikely place to actually get sick. And I have pilot friends, and they told me the same thing. They're not concerned about flying because they've already taken all the precautions. So.
Yeah. And I think that's what you have to remember. What is that like airline you're flying, or what is that hotel you're staying at? What are their safety measures? I mean, I used Disney as an example before here, but Disney also has anybody can have a COVID test that's an employee there. So if they're not feeling good, they can do these rapid tests and making sure that their employees are safe. And that's the same as if you're going into a big live event as well, you should have an option of rapid testing and looking at that. So if you have an attendee who is sick or not feeling well, or you could rapid test everybody before they actually go to the event too. So there's a lot of different things that you can do that, but it's knowing that, hotels right now are doing a lot. I felt much safer at a hotel knowing that brand was putting on a safety seal. So when that room was cleaned down, you opened up that door and broke the seal, then they knew that room was no longer clean. So that made me feel more comfortable. They're not doing a lot of the housekeeping because they're not having a lot of people in your room. So once you go in there, it's already cleaned down, everything's good. So you see a lot of those safety measures being taken place. And, I encourage you to want to start traveling to doing things is looking at that. And I know right now, before we do events or we're traveling with our clients, we're asking that property, give me your specific, safety measures. We're going with a certain airline. What are your safety measures? So we're making sure as you travel that it's also safe for you. So I think it's a lot more just pre-logistic planning than ever before, and thinking of things that you never thought of before.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been very informative. I'll tell you what, you were a fantastic guest. And again, this couldn't be more timely as people are considering what they're going to do, for 2021 and beyond, how they're going to do it. It is a big deal for all of us, because safety, our health is the most important thing. So we want to be able to move forward. We want to do it safely and in the right manner, but make people feel comfortable in the process. So I think you've alleviated a lot of our concerns. And I think we're going to take a lot of this away and at least have something to think about, right? Make our educated planning decisions going forward. So
Absolutely.
Irene, thank you very much for everything you do for us. And thanks for joining us today on We Wonder.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Will do.